TvGrace presents Summaries of Conferences 2022. The ineffable words of God that overbuild and lead us toward the great transformation.
First letter to Timothy, chapter 4. It says, "Now the Spirit clearly says that in the last days some people will abandon the faith by following deceitful spirits and doctrines of demons, speaking lies in hypocrisy, having their own conscience seared, forbidding to marry, and commanding to abstain from foods which God has created to be received with thanksgiving by those who believe and know the truth." Well, the first thing that we see here is that for you to apostatize from faith, it says here that some will apostatize from faith listening to doctrine. Now, where is it that you listen to doctrine? In a baseball field? In the Lions Club? No, when you go to a church, because if you're going to hear doctrine, it is to say that that is done in a church. Oh, so it isn't demons, pastors with horns and volatile spirits. No, there are demons in the aspect that they are pastors. The demons are the reverends. Because it says that they will depart from faith listening to doctrines of demons. It is to say that that doctrine of demon is preached by a man, a woman, a priest, a pastor, a person that preaches in a church where people go to hear God, but they wind up listening to doctrines of demons. So the first thing we see is that to listen to a doctrine, you have to go to a church. And where they speak of doctrines, it's exactly in temples, synagogues, and religious places. Now, what is the characteristic? This is the second step. The characteristics of a church where a pastor teaches doctrines of demon. Notice that the first characteristic for you to know that in a church there is doctrines of demon is that they prohibit. How many churches prohibit it? In this church, we prohibit that women use pants. In this church, we prohibit that a woman use makeup. There are many prohibitions. In this church, we prohibited people to eat meat on Fridays. All doctrines of demons begin prohibiting. Now, where are prohibitions born out of? From the law. In this case that we are noticing worldwide on television and through the newspapers is that they've been prohibiting to marry. Now, one of the, and I would say the only one worldwide that for their leaders can minister is that they cannot marry. Apparently, they think that to give a better service or a better communion with God, the person shouldn't marry because if he marries, he has sex, and it seems that for them, sex is bad. When Paul said that let marriage be honorable. Now, why all of this is going on amongst the Catholic institution? Because they prohibit to marry, and to prohibit to marry is one of the characteristics of the doctrinal demons. Paul was the first to say, "Brethren, everything is permissible." Permissible is the opposite of prohibitions. Everything is allowed, lawful. God doesn't prohibit me from doing anything, but not everything is beneficial because God expects that you exercise the senses of your understanding, and without anyone prohibiting you, you reach conclusions in your own life. That is the best thing in life. That is the glorious liberty. Yes, liberty exists where there's no prohibition. And there you arrive to a conclusion. Well, I don't like this. Well, but they don't deprive that in church. They don't prohibit me from doing it, but I don't like to do it. But they don't prohibit that you have a glass of wine, but I don't like wine. It isn't that they prohibited me, it's that I don't like it. I don't like this, I don't like that. So therefore, I don't need for them to give me a list of prohibition because everything is permissible. But everything that's not beneficial, I don't do it without a pastor giving me a list of rules. So they prohibited me from eating blood sausage and I used to go by a restaurant when I was in New York, and I would look at the pork and the sausage. Notice I would be tempted because they prohibited me, but I really don't like blood sausage or that kind of meat. At the beginning, I would eat of those types of food when I was younger because our parents teach us sometimes to eat whatever and foods that are not really healthy for you with grease. But after grace educates you, you also look at the foods you eat without prohibition. It's a lifestyle that you eat better, right? But not because you're forbid to. For whom was the law given? Let's see a list so you can see that the law is what causes these problems. The first letter to Timothy, chapter 1, verse 9. Right there where we were reading, chapter 1, verse 9 says, knowing this, that the law is not made for the righteous person. It wasn't made for what? The righteous, the seed of God. Sometimes I hear people, here in Miami, there are many that defend the law. Those groups, messianic groups, that's the same dog with a different leash trying to get Gentiles under the yoke of the law. You should watch all of that Judaism that is being preached in the name in that they've accepted the Messiah. It says, knowing this, that the law is not made for the righteous person, but for the lawless and disobedience and the ungodly, for sinners, for the unholy, for the profane, for murderers of fathers and murderers of mothers, for the fornicators, for the sodomites, for the kidnappers, liars, perjurers, and all of those that come against the sound doctrine according to the gospel of the glory of the blessed God, which with I was entrusted. Oppose Paul's teachings is to oppose God himself. To oppose to the teachings of Paul is to fall, to be discredited, to blaspheme against the spirit of grace. Life is not going to go well for you. You're going to have crucial consequences. You know what that means? Everything is lawful. But you know where the word lawful comes from? From license. You have a license to do whatever comes your way. But that doesn't sound Christian Catholic. That doesn't look good, that I have a license to do whatever I want. God gave it to you. God gave it to you. I mean, I'm talking about the expert architect, the Pharisee of Pharisees, Saul of Tarsus. Paul, known as the Apostle Paul, of 27 books, he wrote 14 in the New Testament. From the tribe of Benjamin, circumcised on the 8th day, Jew of Jews, excelled all those that tried to live for God. He was the best. He surpassed all. So then he prohibited. He didn't say everything was lawful during those days. He said it was what Moses says, what the law says. Here, you don't have an opinion. It's what Moses says. Then suddenly Christ died and appeared to him and tells him, now it's what I say, not what Moses says. In other words, that before the cross, you couldn't say everything is lawful. No, before the cross, before he died, whoever said everything is lawful would fall dead. Now, after Christ died and resurrected, now Paul himself says, look, brother, everything is lawful. Let's see it biblically with foundation, right? Because this is not religion nor the opinions of men. For me to guarantee that I am authentic, I have to go to the foundation. If you catch me out of the foundation, call me false. You have absolutely every right. If you catch me with what's written, be careful. Don't call me false. Because you can be against God. And God can give you a whipping or two well given. First letter to the Corinthians, chapter 6. Chapter 6. Look at what the apostle says. Are we there? Tell the Lord like this, Abba Father, Abba Father. It says, everything is lawful for me. How many? Are you reading it there? And what is everything? Everything is lawful for me, but not everything is beneficial. Hello. Not everything is beneficial. Everything is lawful for me. He repeats again. He himself repeats, but I will not let myself be dominated. Say dominated. Of anything. That's tremendous, right? Everything is lawful, but not everything is beneficial. And even those that convenient, I don't let myself be dominated, right? That's called self-control. Look at what Romans chapter 8 in verse 21. Romans 8:21. Because the creation itself also will be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty, the good liberty, no, the glorious liberty of the children of God. Tell me something. If God gives you a license and tells you, Jose Luis, I ran out of commandments for you. Lord, explain to me because I have a corrupt body. Everything is lawful. What can I do? To be a good Christian, what must I not do and what must I do? No. You are a good Christian. That's why I gave you the license. This license, I only give it to my children, to those that can enter the glorious liberty. It isn't just any liberty, it's glorious. If they offer me a nice glass of wine, what brand is it? Merlot. What year? Oh, it's very pure. Such a wine with a good meal. And I have a license to say no and to say yes. So depending on the moment, because everything has its moments, at 10 in the morning, you're not going to offer me that. A Wednesday night, you won't offer me that. But you offer it to me on a Saturday in a good meal. I enjoy it tremendously. You know who doesn't enjoy that glorious liberty? The Christians, the legalist evangelicals who have commandments, and God has not given them the license. Because they fall into guilt and drinking a cup. They say, well, the sanctity has gone. I'm going to drink the whole liter. The next day they walk in. But since I know that my Lord is not watching me, I have the ability to enjoy all things on this earth under self-dominion. Pastor, I don't like wine. Well, don't drink it. because there isn't commandments. What there is everything is lawful, but I will not let myself be dominated. Say dominated. From there, the word self-dominion comes from, which is the spirit God gave his children. The spirit of love, power, and self-dominion. Everything is lawful, but not everything is beneficial. You don't have to sow money here. Why? Because you have money or license not to sow. You have the license to say, I'm not going to give anything. Well, I'll go there, I'll benefit from the AC and the seat and benefit from the studies, but I give nothing. Let someone else pay for the... But not everything is beneficial for you to think like that. Because then there is a principle there of your future. You are abandoning your future. You're harming yourself. Everything is lawful. Look, in 3 areas. In the church, everything is lawful. At home, everything is lawful. And in your personal life, everything is lawful. In those 3 places, you manifest your life. Everything is lawful. But you cannot let yourself be dominated. Chapter 10, verse 14. Book of Hebrews. For by one offering he has perfected forever those who are sanctified. The sanctified are the ones that the license are given to do everything. It is to say that he's already sanctified you, so then he gives you the license. You've been sanctified. Here it is. You're going to live however you wish. Now look, it says, now the Holy Spirit also witnesses to us. The Holy Spirit does what? Witnesses. For after he said before, this is the covenant that I will make, because this was said by a prophet, with them after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws in their hearts. And here, hearts is the mind. I will put my laws in their hearts, and in their minds I what? Will write them. Listen. In their minds. It is to say that he gives them a license, but he also writes his laws in your mind so that everyone does not abuse their license. I can drive my automobile at high speeds if I want, but it is not beneficial because the tickets are expensive. You're caught and the car can slip, and if it slips it can land upside down and I may leave with the Lord that night. So then I die, and then when I go before the Lord I say, Lord, forgive me that I drove so fast. I have nothing to forgive you about. You were the one that lost the opportunity of reigning in life down there, and you violated principles. How are you going to drive at those kinds of speeds? It was raining. What? Don't you think? I am not putting commandments to anyone. You should use your self-dominion and the laws that I wrote in your little head. When you're doing something, don't you hear a little voice that tells you, right? Look at what Titus chapter 1 verse 15 says. Titus, letter to Titus, to the young man Titus, the one that had sexual relations with his stepmother. This one, that man. Oh, pastor, and in the kingdom there's room for people like that? Titus had sexual relations with his stepmother because he comes from Corinthian, and that was an area where sex was out of control. And it seems like the stepmother and him got together and it became a soap opera. Those things happen. And Paul rescued him. Paul helped him. And now Titus is a man, a competitive minister that corrects what's deficient. Well, look at what it tells him in verse 5. It says, I left you in Crete that you may arrange the things lacking and may set elders
down in every city as I appointed you. He is free from that conduct. And look at what it says here in verse 15. It says, all things are pure for whom? What God is trying is for you to be pure tonight so you don't see evil. Instead, that you use self-dominion. All things are pure for those whom are pure, but for those who are corrupt and unbelievers, nothing is pure, because even their minds and consciences, their conscience are corrupt. There are lots of corrupt Christians who see evil in everything. They see evil in the parties. They see evil in everything that God has made for you to enjoy. They see evil. But for the pure, I give glory to God that the word has purified me. It has purified me, not to live as I please, because there are the truth. The Spirit of God that dwells in me wrote his laws in my mind. Yeah, sometimes some things slip, but self-control. Don't let it go beyond. Because we are human beings, and human beings, everyone is damaged, including you. Friend and brother, friend and sister, elder, adult, young lady, young man. All of us here, if salvation, listen closely, if salvation were for a strict life, no one would go to heaven. Jesus Christ came to die in vain. Listen, that verse is powerful. All things are pure for those who are pure. But for those who are corrupt, the unbelievers, nothing is pure. But even their minds and conscience are corrupt. You know what's that? The mind and conscience? Your conscience. You have to reach growth where you don't see evil. What you see is self-control. The Apostle Paul once had to, let's look to the book of Galatians chapter 2. The liberty he lived was so powerful that all of the Christians of Jerusalem, listen to this, in the day of Pentecost, how many converted? 4,000 or 5,000? How many? 5,000. Look at what chapter 2 says in verse 4. And this occurred because of the false brethren secretly brought in, who came in by stealth to spy out our liberty which we have in Christ Jesus, that they might bring us to bondage. You know what Paul was saying here? Paul says, from Jerusalem, when they heard about this glorious liberty that I said that everything is lawful, the elders in Jerusalem immediately became upset. So then James, the brother of Jesus in the flesh, well, he has some bodyguards there who Paul called spies. So when they heard that Saul of Tarsus, the one that devastated the church, now was converted and preached the gospel, Paul was establishing churches. So then people were believing. But when James heard, he says, what does Paul preach? It's strange. He says that everything is lawful and that everything is not beneficial. It's all that he says. He says that the salvation is not in danger, but he doesn't let himself be dominated. It's a glorious liberty. He talks about that when Christ died and was risen, the commandments changed and the people were delivered a glorious liberty. So when James heard that, from Jerusalem came many of the apostles to visit Paul's services. So Timothy would say to Paul, listen, you see that one on the right corner? He's from circumcision. And what are they doing there? There are a few. They spread around. And what did they come for? Look at what they came to do. What did Paul call them? Brethren? He called them false what? He called them false what? False brethren. Were they brothers? And why does Paul call them false? Now, what must we do to keep this liberty? We have to do something. We have to defend it to the teeth, armed to the teeth. Now, what are we going to do? We must do something. I recommend what the Apostle Paul did. Verse 5. We read 4. Look at 5. Look at what verse 5 says. To whom, what does it say? Might there be another version that says, instead of for a moment, minutes, or seconds? Not for a second. Hey, hello, that's a wink of an eye. That is a quick movement. Not for a moment. Submit to what? The spies arrived. They did their approach, their acercamiento in Spanish. And they told Paul, listen, Paul, you have to respect that Peter walked above the water. You know that by his shadow, the sick were healed. You know that Peter was a man of many experiences and chosen by the Master. That one that resurrected, that you say you serve in the days of his flesh, chose him. I imagine that Paul told him, not for a moment. A moment works like this. Well, that one that chose him as a fisherman appeared to me resurrected and told me it is not as he says. He told me that he doesn't even know the scriptures. He didn't even know who was Isaiah nor the prophets. He was a fisherman. He was an ambassador of the times of that period, and he knows nothing of this. And the one that appeared to me told me, be careful, beware of that bandit. Oh, no, but I represent him. We come from Jerusalem. We were sent to look. And we have some recommendations. Well, we don't want him. No, like, let's meet. No, we don't want to meet. Leave. I don't want to speak to you. I don't deal with these folks. I don't respect them. I have no respect for them. Talk to me about that garbage. Oh, apostle, but you must have love. I have enough. But with that, you don't have to. What you have to apply is judgment. Not me. And if they persist, let them all die. I don't care. Let them die. With that, listen, well, Paul immediately would turn him over to Satan. And if he turned you over to Satan, he said, your flesh will be destroyed. Your spirit is going to be saved, but your flesh I'm destroying. Paul. I mean, if you grab on to Paul, you're going to see that same apostle of love is the same one that says it's necessary to shut their mouths. Yes, it is a combination. A dual combination. Yes. That liberty must be defended with the word, not with weapons, not with carnal issues or fighting or offending, but with the gospel as Paul did. Paul said, I will not agree to submit to that type of teaching so that the truth, the worst enemy of the truth were the religious ones of those days. The worst ones of our liberty are the religions, the religious concepts that were taught to you, and you're full of them, and you have them accommodated there in your mind. That doesn't come out that easy. That takes years to come out of you. It takes years to get rid of all of that contamination. All of this society is poisoned because of those 11 apostles who disobeyed and Judaized the world. I was sharing this week with various people I was sharing with, and I was saying that grace and liberty have a modus operandi, that it has a form of operating in our lives. For an example, look, there are things that happen to you in your personal life. And they happen. Some are good, some are bad, others make you suffer. So then there are things, not that happen to you, it's that someone makes them happen to you, someone that hurts you. So then what happens? That one that is hurting you, if he didn't do it with premeditation and he didn't do it with bad intentions, with iniquity, so then that which he does to you, it works out together for you. And he is cleansed with his angel because he didn't do it with bad intentions. It was wrong that he did it, but it's going to work out for the better for you. So what happens? So hear this. So there are things that you do to others that hurt them. So then what happens? You do it to them, you're going to be disciplined. Now, if you didn't do it with bad intentions because of your condition, because of how carnal you are, for the measure you have, but since you didn't do it with bad intentions, you are cleansed of your situation. You hurt another, and the other, it'll work together for good for him. So it is a chain, because no one governs their lives here. Here, the angel say that the steps of a man are ordered, and when he falls, the Lord is the one who holds his hand. Everything has cause and effect, and God is forming. For an example, I had a pastor in this system, and that guy, he hurt me. I've never heard of a person worse than him. And listen, I used to deal with people in my youth, with people that I only knew them by a nickname. If you said their real name, I don't know who you're talking about. Tarantula and so. But those people were good in comparison. They were thieves. They were also killers. They did everything, but they were good people. The problem is when I arrived to church, there they are. Especially a church that doesn't know grace. It's in grace and they sneak in. Imagine churches that don't have grace. Well, that pastor did something to me that I would cry. How could I have? I didn't expect this in a church. I expected this in the street, but not in church. But listen, now I say, perhaps he had no evil. He gave me what he had, what he understood was correct, because he was a pastor. That was his measure. And he treated me that way. It hurt me, but perhaps he was clean with God and I was full of poison. Father, discipline him. And he was calm and I was full of resentment and speaking bad of him. But today, as one grows, because that's what growing in grace means. Well, as I grew in grace, what man did to me, he did me a tremendous favor. He taught me. I learned from him. Today I have more patience to treat others because of what he did to me. So you have what happens to you, what you do to others. Everything works together for the good. What did God give us? A spirit of what? Self-dominion. Say, I have self-dominion. I do not have commandments. I have no prohibitions. Everything is lawful, but not everything edifies. Not everything is beneficial. Self-dominion regulates my life. But you're not bearing witness of Moses any longer? No, Moses is the God of this world. He's ruined everything. That Judaism, those 10 commandments or the 607 ruined the world. No, now that he's resurrected, it's another spirit. It is righteousness, that we are perfect with one offering, that we have peace with God, that we can say, Daddy, that means, Abba, Father, thank you. I don't have to be bound to nothing. That now it is a spirit of power, of love, and self-dominion. Verse 16, in the day when God shall judge the secrets of man by Jesus Christ, according to my gospel. There was a day that was to come where Paul says that God was going to judge people with his gospel. What am I doing here tonight? Judging what? Your secrets. I am speaking to you in white and black. Gospel that I preach. It's what Paul spoke about, the judgment to come. Because in that judgment, all of the secrets of man will be judged. And to judge, it isn't to condemn. To judge is to clarify all things such as they are. Look at what first letter to the Corinthians 4:5 says. Therefore, judge nothing before the time until the Lord comes, who both will bring to light the hidden things of darkness and will manifest the counsel of the heart, and then shall every man have praise of God. Until whom comes? The Lord. And how is the Lord coming? With knowledge, with the gospel. This is not the coming to transform the bodies. This is the coming to clarify the intentions of man's heart. That judgment that was to come, we are seeing it now. That's why Paul told Felix the coming judgment, because it had not arrived. I'm going to write it, but it is a judgment that is to come, where in all the religions, the truth will be uncovered. And today you are a witness of these things that are being clarified.